Welcome to Theme Weavers, your weekly wisdom for weaving yoga themes into your classes to inspire your students. I'm your host, Heidi Kasner. Let's get started. Welcome back to Theme Weavers. Today we are going to look at how to deliver a Dharma talk and weave the theme of the myth of Lotus Pose, which reminds us that we can rise above challenges and bloom into our fullest potential. Before we dive in, I just want to be honest. This past week has felt pretty heavy for me. Maybe it's the season, or maybe it's just life reminding me to sit with the mud a little longer. And when I sat down to prep for this episode, it just hit a little bit differently than usual. I realized how often I return to this image of the lotus, not just as a teacher, but as a human. Personally, I am in a season of doing just that. I'm currently in the middle of making some really big changes in my life, which I will share with you all really, really soon. I promise. I know I keep saying that, but I'm just not ready to share it with the world yet. But until the change is ready, I find myself in a period of muddy muck. Part of it is not being able to openly share with everyone what the changes are until it's ready to be public. And don't worry, the changes are beyond exciting and positive. But with every change brings about a shedding of what was, both your identity from your ego and sometimes people who are along the journey with you just for a short time. That to me is the mud. Being able to know I am blooming to my next highest self, but that there will always be loss and consequences in the process. I know I'm being a little bit vague, which I apologize for, but keep listening in the coming weeks, and I promise to share more concrete details that some of you might be very interested in. But that's what this episode is all about, that there's always going to be mud before we can bloom, and that even when loss is a part of that mud, that doesn't mean that it is bad. It's just part of the process. If you choose to use today's teaching as your theme, then please find a way to turn my voice into yours. Make this theme authentic to you specifically. So thanks for tuning in. We'll dive right into today's episode, and I'll share my announcements at the end, so be sure to listen all the way through. Okay, yoga story time. Today I want to share the story of the lotus flower. It's a powerful symbol in yoga and meditation and how it connects to Padmasana, or lotus pose. This story reminds us of our ability to rise above challenges, to grow and bloom even in the most unlikely circumstances. I don't know about you, but I've definitely had times where life felt really muddy, like now, as I said. Periods where everything felt unclear, messy, or heavy. Moments of doubt, fear, overwhelm, where I wasn't sure how I was going to move forward, even though I knew that I would. It's in these seasons that this story of the lotus really resonates with me. Today we're exploring Padmasana, lotus pose, and the deeper meaning behind it. You've probably heard of the lotus as a symbol in yoga before. It's everywhere, from books to tattoos, even on my rib cage where I feel my breath, to statues. But there's a reason it's everywhere. The lotus is a powerful metaphor for what it means to be human, to be grounded in the mud of life and still bloom into something beautiful. In Hindu mythology, the lotus is a sacred flower that represents purity, rebirth, and spiritual awakening. The gods Vishnu, Brahma, and Lakshmi are all associated with it. One story tells of a golden lotus that emerged from the infinite cosmic ocean before creation itself. From this glowing blossom, the god Brahma appeared and began shaping the universe. Creation, in other words, began not from perfection, but from the murky depths. That image, the golden lotus rising out of darkness, feels so meaningful when I reflect on moments in my own life that feel totally uncertain. I remember feeling this when I was in the hospital room with my son when he was a baby, both before and after having open heart surgery. Watching machines monitor his every breath, waiting on news I couldn't control, and feeling like I was floating in a sea of unknowns. I wasn't sitting in lotus pose. I just had a baby after all. So I was pretty uncomfortable, and I delivered him less than 2 weeks before that. But I was living the energy of the lotus. I was there in the mud, terrified and exhausted, but also holding onto the tiniest sense of light. I didn't know what the next moment would bring, but I had to stay grounded and open. That moment taught me what the lotus is really about. Because the lotus doesn't wait for the mud to disappear. It grows because of the mud. It rises through the darkness, not after the darkness disappears. The murk, the heaviness, the confusion, it's part of the process. The bloom doesn't happen despite the mud. The mud is what makes it bloom. What I love about this image is that it's not just about rising up. It's about being rooted in the mud, but not defined by it. The mud isn't something to resent. It's a necessary part of the process. The nutrients, the support system, the transformation happens through the mud. There was a time in my life when I was navigating grief and uncertainty. I kept trying to get out of the hard part as fast as possible, thinking I was failing somehow for struggling. But over time, I realized that the very lessons I needed were in the mud. I wasn't going to bloom by bypassing the hard stuff, and I couldn't wait for the hard stuff to go away before I could then take action either, because the growth happened within it. Even just last month, I had a week where everything kept going wrong. Work stuff, parenting stuff, inner self-doubt, all that stuff. I was like, I just couldn't get traction. And I found myself sitting with this exact image of the lotus, wondering if I was blooming at all or just drowning in the muck. But that's the thing. The image of the lotus doesn't promise instant transformation. Ugh, it would be like magical if it did, right? But instead, it invites us to keep growing anyway. That's why this symbol is so powerful. It tells us that even in the thickest parts of life, we are still growing. Even when we can't see the light yet, our roots are anchoring us. Even when we feel stuck, we are actually transforming. The lotus teaches us that no matter how challenging or messy our circumstances might be, we have the power to rise, transform, and bloom. And it's easy to forget that, right? In a culture that we live in, at least here where I live in America, it tells us to push through or stay positive, right? We hear that a lot. The lotus says something else. Be where you are. Be in the mud and trust that you are blooming. So powerful. It's a different perspective. Padmasana, lotus pose, is often taught as the serene seated posture. Legs folded like petals, hands at the heart or on the knees. But even if the pose itself isn't accessible to your body today, the essence of the pose is always available. It's an invitation to sit with what is, to root down into your life as it is right now, and open anyway. So maybe ask yourself, what does blooming look like for me today? Can I let myself be both grounded and growing, even if things feel murky? What if I don't have to wait for things to be perfect before I allowed myself to open? The lotus doesn't bloom in crystal clear water. It blooms in the muck, and still it's radiant. Think about the challenges you faced in your own life, moments of doubt or pain or difficulty. How did those moments shape you? Did you gain strength, clarity, compassion, or boundaries through these experiences? The lotus reminds us that even in the darkest times, there is an opportunity to grow. The mud is not a hindrance, it's part of the process. In our modern world, we're often focused on the end result: success, perfection, achievement, go, 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 go. The lotus teaches us that the journey itself, with all of its challenges, is what makes us who we are. By embracing our struggles, we discover our strength and resilience. The story isn't just about ancient mythology, it's a mirror, a reminder that we are part of the same cycle. Creation comes out of chaos. Beauty is born in difficulty. And we too are capable of blooming into something radiant, even when the conditions don't seem perfect, especially when they don't. That's our invitation and practice today. Whether you're in Padmasana or any other pose, see if you can feel your roots in the earth and your heart rising above. Trust that your bloom may look different than someone else's, and that's the beauty of it. Each one is unique. Each one is worthy. And maybe the next time you find yourself in the middle of one of life's muddy moments, you'll remember this. You are not the mud. You are the bloom. And the mud, that's your compost. It's what fuels your growth. If this story hits home for you, let me know. I'd love to hear what your muddy season looks like, or where you're beginning to see signs of your own bloom. Reach out, tag me, share it. This is the kind of conversation that keeps me rooted in the why of what I do. Okay, so your Dharma talk and story time are finished. And now it's the fun part where we get into the class and find a phrase to drop as breadcrumbs at different points throughout the class to help your students come back to the myth behind the lotus flower. You follow the breadcrumbs, then you stay on course and weave your theme throughout the class. Some options I like to use, and some of the questions I used in the Dharma talk also could be what you choose as your thematic throughline phrase. But some others that I might use are rise as if moving through mud, like the lotus seeking light. Or feel your roots grounding and your heart blooming. Or every challenge is an opportunity to grow stronger. Or how about you are not defined by your circumstances, but by how you rise. Or bloom where you are, just as the lotus does. Or the simple one that is applicable to so many classes, root down, rise up. Or what about grow through what you go through? I'd have trouble with that one. It's a tongue twister, right? Grow through what you go through. Or you're allowed to be both muddy and blooming, even if it's at the same time. Or what about let the roots ground you so the heart can open? Or you don't have to be perfect to rise. Or every breath is a step through the mud. Or trust that something beautiful is forming inside or out. Or lastly, just like the lotus, you rise. I think something really important to point out is something I see in class and also outside of a class is that people tend to wait until the conditions are perfect or optimal in order to take action. Like so many people are like, oh, I'm going to try that pose when I get a little bit stronger, or when the weather is a little bit nicer, or when the wind's not blowing, or I'm going to wait to quit my job until I have everything lined up and I know that I'm financially stable, or I'm not going to go back to school until my kids have graduated and blah, blah, blah. Like people make excuses all the time, waiting for conditions to be perfect to try something. But this myth teaches us that we don't have to wait for conditions to be perfect. We just have to realize that that's part of the process of our growth. Can you still take action despite the mud that you're in, the conditions that you're in? Can you carve out space to take action? It doesn't need to be perfect. It can be messy, but do it anyway, right? Do it in class, try the pose. You're safe. I got you. Do it in your life. Take a risk. Recognize it might be hard. It might be muddy. It might not work and you might fail, but you're going to grow because of it no matter what. So that's my little TED talk. Like, don't wait to take action. Just do it anyway. And you'll be like so surprised by the growth that you find in that process, even if it's not what you planned on growing toward. All right, so that's my little thing, my little detour there. So now that we have our thematic throughline phrase, or like 15 of them, you can choose which one you like the most or something different. Let's chat about how we bring all of this alive in the class. What additional things do we want to hit on? Things like peak poses or specific pranayamas, or really anything else related to the myth of the lotus. So obviously a peak pose that would be lovely is Lotus Pose. It's a good one. It's what this is all about. So it's what helps it come alive, and it's not an easy class. In my own practice lately, I've been repeating the phrase root down, rise up a lot, not just in class, but in life. When I feel overwhelmed, I literally pause, plant my feet, and breathe that phrase. It's become a small but powerful ritual for me. And I'm finding that the more I come back to it, the less stuck I feel. It's funny how we pick up on things that stick with us through different phases of our life, and they ground us to feeling like we are back at home in our own experiences. I think that phrase of root down, rise up is just that for me. I even put it on the shirts I made for my team one year for Yoga Reaches Out. Do you know about that event? I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but it's this huge fundraiser for Boston Children's Hospital. Once a year, hundreds of yogis get together and raise funds for a day-long yogathon. I always bring a team, Heidi Kasner Yoga, and we've raised over $100,000 together over the years, and it's just totally unbelievable. That's one of the things from my story about my son earlier. The mud of the experience and the blooming of the lotus, in part, is me being able to give back to others who are in similar circumstances. So that might be a mantra that you use throughout class: root down, rise up. Some quotes that might be useful if you're a quote teacher. This is by Unknown. Like the lotus, we have the ability to rise from the mud, bloom out of the darkness, and radiate into the world. Or N.R. Narayana Murthy said, growth is painful, change is painful, but nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong. Or Thich Nhat Hanh, no mud, no lotus. Simple, right? Or Unknown, strength comes from the challenges you grow through. Or Mulan, the Disney movie. The flower that blooms in adversity is the most rare and beautiful of all. Okay. Then if you wanted to do a different mantra, you could even do Om Mani Padma Hum. The jewel is in the lotus, symbolizing transformation and enlightenment. So that would be a nice Sanskrit one, or, root down, rise up for English. You could do a mudra practice of Padma Mudra, which is the lotus gesture, opening the hands like a blooming flower. So Padma Mudra, also known as the Lotus Mudra, resembles a blooming lotus flower with your hands, where the base of the palms and the little fingers and thumbs are pressed together, while the remaining fingers gently spread open, symbolizing the petals of the flower opening up. I'm doing it now if you're watching the video version. Essentially creating a prayer hand gesture with the fingers gently fanning out like the lotus blossom. And if you'd like to give a short little visualization meditation, you could say to your students, visualize yourself as a lotus flower, rooted in the earth, but rising above the water. With each inhale, feel your strength. With each exhale, let go of anything holding you back. Okay, so let's wrap up the class now that we talked about all of that. This might be an example of what I would say as a reverse Dharma talk, the closing to the class. As you step off your mat today, carry the lesson of the lotus with you. Life will always present challenges, but those challenges are the soil from which you bloom. You are not defined by the mud around you, but by how you rise through it and grow into your fullest potential. Ask yourself, how can I transform challenges into opportunities for growth? Where in my life can I bloom, even in difficult circumstances? Remember, like the lotus, you hold the power to rise above and radiate beauty and light into the world. As I said when I started this episode, even as I record this, I'm reminding myself of this too. I have things in my life right now that feel murky, confusing, and uncertain. And I'm trying to trust that they're not blocks. They're the fertilizer for my future growth and blooming. Now, if you like this yoga story time, find a way to bring the theme alive in your own voice and your own practice and your own teaching. The story of the lotus reminds us that we can rise above challenges and bloom into our fullest potential. May this myth inspire you to embrace your journey, trusting that even in the mud, there is room to grow. You can check out the links at the bottom of the show notes, where I have left you a link to the transcript of the Dharma talk that I shared for our yoga story time. And before we go, if you like this episode and you're enjoying Theme Weavers, please leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. And also be sure to follow the show. It makes a difference for the algorithm, so that way Theme Weavers gets recommended to other people. You can also find Theme Weavers on all of the social channels to keep up to date with some fun reels and posts that I share. I'm really, really grateful to each of you who listen, and the more you share and interact, the more energy and excitement that it's sending my way. There's also an option to set up a subscription to Theme Weavers for a small monthly fee. Beyond showing me gratitude, if you're a chromatic yoga teacher and you are a paid subscriber, you're able to track your listening as additional continuing education hours. If you have any questions about that, just reach out at themeweaverspodcast@gmail.com. And last thing, both have links in the show notes below. Check out Theme Weavers Academy, a quick practical course that was designed to help you craft impactful yoga classes with confidence and creativity. And also check out the book I wrote. It's called Energize Your Life, a chakra workbook for personal transformation. If you're part of yoga teacher training programs, I even have a half-day workshop that I offer on the chakra system and how to integrate it into theming your yoga classes. It's so much fun getting to work with different yoga teacher training programs. So if you're interested, please reach out. And then please tune in next time, where we have, we actually have 3 interview episodes left in this season before I decide to take a break before the next season. So check out those interviews. They're going to be really great conversations, and I hope that they can inspire you with the classes that you're teaching throughout your weeks. And tune in next time. Can't wait to see you. I hope you find at least one moment this week where you notice, hey, I'm blooming. Even if it's messy, even if it's small, that's enough. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week with a new myth and modern inspiration to bring to your practice and your teaching. See you next time.